Now, of all the things I've said tonight, my position on education may be the most controversial for some people. But I believe that the problem in education is not the amount of money that we're spending, because we're spending more than we've ever spent on a per student basis. But our delivery systems are antiquated. They resemble the same way that we used to make cars in the 1920s, which is the way General Motors was making cars, which is why when foreign countries came into the United States to make cars, Tennessee all of a sudden became a place where you could make cars 20% cheaper with much higher quality than we were making in Detroit. It's because the way we were making the cars, the responsibility that we were giving to the people that were making the cars, didn't assure us quality, didn't assure us productivity. And one of the things that I said earlier that I learned from my father was, do you want it done right? Do you want it done on time? Or do you want it done on budget? And those are three questions that we should never be faced with. Because the answer is, yes, I want it done on time, on budget, and I want it done right. When I look at education, and I look at the superintendents of the state of Maine, in K through 12, I realize that here are people that have the responsibility for educating our children that have absolutely zero authority. They actually probably can't even fire a janitor if they don't like their performance. And I've rarely met a teacher who privately hasn't said, I know of 2 or 3 people in my school that are doing a lousy job teaching, but since they've been here for 20 years, they're going to stay for a much longer period of time, and they're not going to change the way they teach. And so the average educational value or measurement of our students is going down. So now we kind of have a double whammy. When we cut 20% of the amount of money available to our local school systems, which means that we'll have to cut the number of teachers, the teachers that we're going to get rid of are probably the youngest. And this is an age discrimination, and oftentimes the best, because the superintendents don't get to fire the people who are the worst performers. They're forced to let go of the last people that came in the door. And that's pretty much, anybody in here not a baseball fan or would not understand a baseball analogy? It's kind of like going to Terry Francona and saying, Terry, you have to play the oldest member of your squad tonight at third base, even though Kevin Youkilis is on the bench, because whoever it is, regardless of the condition that they're in, maybe Mike Lowell, has got seniority, he's older, so he has to play. Or perhaps you like the analogy of the general who gets told to win the war, but isn't allowed to decide what troops, where to attack, and what to attack with. In my mind, the superintendent of a school system is like the manager of the baseball team, the CEO of the business. If he does a lousy job, you fire him for you. You get rid of the superintendent in a heartbeat. School board can end a superintendent's contract simply by paying him off anytime they want. But you can have a bad teacher in a classroom, and you have no way of getting that teacher out of the classroom. Because it isn't the building that produces the education. It isn't the book that produces the education. It's the teacher that produces the education. And we need to refocus our education on our best teachers, pay them well, and allow them to teach, which is what they're trained to do. But I submit to you that the things that I'm talking about in energy, education, insurance, rules and regulations, and taxes are not things that will affect you in the pocketbook. They are the keys to create jobs. Because when those things are favorable to job creation, people will say, I'd like to go to Maine, it's a great place. Good university system. Good research up in University of Maine at Orono. Husson College has a great boat school in Eastport. We have the mountains. You've got Titcomb to go skiing in after work if you want. You can go to Sugarloaf or Sunday River. You've got great golf courses, great hiking, great mountain biking. You've got 3,000 miles of coastline, more than California has. And this is one of the most fantastic places that one could possibly think of bringing up and educating a family and being and living a life. But what are the things that are in the way? And then those are the things that we just need to do something about. I don't believe that there's an employee in the state of Maine that wants to be made fun of. I don't believe anybody that's getting a paycheck wants to be maligned by their fellow citizens. But I think unless we provide leadership and rules and regulations that inspire the people that are working for us, and I'm trying to be one of those people to work for you, unless those people are motivated and understand what their jobs are and what they're supposed to do and have a clear vision, we won't succeed. So my job for the next 9 months, 10 months until the general election, and then for the next year after that, is to remember that I need to work for you and work on 5 things. And it's not overly complicated for me because I don't think that I need to take on the responsibility of solving social issues. I'm not going to be in the position of having to appoint a Supreme Court judge to try to figure out whether Roe versus Wade needs to be overturned. And I don't think that I need to tell you what your social values are. But I do think that it's my job to work for you and be your governor, to change the tax structure of the state of Maine and not raise taxes on you because you're already paying enough. You do not need to pay more to get what you deserve out of government. I believe it's my job to create competition and insurance so that small business can survive. I believe that it's my job to change and propose to change the rules and regulations that are keeping business formation out of the state of Maine. I believe it's my job to put forth an educational plan that will make sure that your children, when you have them, your children and your grandchildren will get the best darn education that they can get in any one of the 50 states, and I don't want Maine to be anything other than #1 when it comes to K through education. And I like charter schools, and I like vouchers, and I like superintendents that have power, not only responsibility, but have authority to run their school systems. And that's my job for the next 9 years, just to work on those things. If I work on those things, everything else will take care of itself. A hundred years ago, the state of Maine was in one of the most enviable positions of all the states in the United States. By the way, I can't tell you how many there were. More than 13, but less than 50. I'm gonna have to figure that one out. 48. 100 years ago, there were 48? Okay. Maine was the #1 producer of protein from the ocean. We had 400 large commercial vessels fishing off the state of Maine. 100 years ago, we were the leader in linens and woolens. 100 years ago, we were making more steel ships in Hyde, Maine. John Hyde started what became Bath Iron Works. 100 years ago, we were the leaders in shoe manufacture, pulp and paper, timber. There were 75 hunting lodges in Moosehead alone. Maine was the hunting capital of the Northeast. We had a booming tourist industry. And that was 100 years ago. 100 years later, we don't have any of those things. We went from being #1 to being, it's not nice to harp on it, but we're 47th or 48th or 49th or 50th in a lot of categories that we don't want to be in. And again, not because there were any evildoers that just decided that they were gonna ruin the state of Maine. It just, that's where we are.